1 inch, ha ha ha. Xiao Yan. Right? I didn't expect you to come here after coming out of the northern Kang Mountains. You even beat up the white dragon eagle that City Lord Sung loves to this extent. You also provoked City Lord Sung's grandson. You have quite the courage. I admire you. Su Chuya stood on the wooden bridge with his back against the railing. He looked at Xiao Yan with a smile that was not a smile. Intentionally or unintentionally, his words provoked Sung Yinteng's anger. When he heard that Xiao Yan had gone to the North Kang Mountains, Sung Yinteng's eyes slightly raised. He suddenly said in a deep voice, "You also went to the North Kang Mountains. What are you going to do there?" Xiao Yan sighed helplessly. He was not in the mood to debate with Su Chuya. He cupped his hands to Sung Yinteng and said, "It was my fault for being reckless. Although the white dragon condor's injuries are severe, it needs to recover. As for your grandson." Xiao Yan forced a smile and looked at the pouting little boy. The little boy snorted lightly and turned his head to ignore Xiao Yan's gaze. "Let me ask you, why are you going to the northern Kang Mountains?" Sung Yinteng had a delicate and pretty face, but at this moment, his face was solemn. He lightly shouted, and his words were filled with hostility. Herbalism. Xiao Yan held back the anger that had suddenly emerged in his heart and spoke plainly. Su Chuya, who was standing in the distance, raised his eyebrows slightly. He couldn't help but look at Sung Yinteng. Every time he came to Medicine City, he would make a trip to the northern Kang Mountains. He had never seen Sung Yinteng react so strongly. What kind of secret was this Xiao Yan hiding that made Sung Yinteng feel uneasy? Herbalism. Did you find anything? Hearing this, Sung Yinteng let out a soft sigh. His tone softened and he said in a low voice, "What do you mean?" Xiao Yan grinned. He no longer had any respect for Sung Yinteng. Instead, his heart was filled with curiosity. It seemed like his identity in the lower realm could really affect the secrets of the northern Kang Mountains. "You know it yourself." Sung Yinteng looked straight into Xiao Yan's eyes. His expression was unusually serious, and he had such an expression on his delicate and pretty face. He couldn't help but look funny. "That cave?" Xiao Yan was shocked in his heart. His eyes revealed some surprise. He thought of ancient monarch Tuo Shi's cave, and then he was puzzled. He had not found any useful information about which cave he was in. He knew that one of the old men was the Medicine Emperor. He had guessed it from Su Chuya's words. "You went in?" Upon hearing this, Sung Yinteng's body trembled imperceptibly. He stared at Xiao Yan and spoke in a low voice. Su Chuya, who was standing beside him, frowned. Listening to the ambiguous conversation between the two of them, his curiosity was greatly increased. He couldn't help but step forward and ask what was going on. Seeing Xiao Yan nod, Sung Yinteng took a deep breath and slowly closed his eyes. Just as Su Chuya was about to step forward, Sung Yinteng suddenly opened his eyes. It was as if there were two bright lights flashing in his eyes. He looked at Xiao Yan and said with a serious expression, "Follow me." After saying that, he walked to the back of the row of wooden houses. After taking a few steps, he paused and said, "Su young master, you come too. I have something to ask you." Xiao Yan and Su Chuya were stunned. They couldn't help but look at each other. They saw the surprise in each other's eyes, but they didn't hesitate to follow him. "Grandpa, White Dragon Condor." The little boy panicked and hurriedly spoke. There was a trace of anxiety in his clear voice, and his face was filled with indignation. "Feed this to it and take good care of it. Kid, you summoned the White Dragon Condor on your own and I'll deal with you later." Sung Yinteng lightly harumphed. With a flick of his finger, a pale yellow medicine pill accurately fell into the little boy's hand, emitting a rich fragrance. "Woo!" After hearing Sung Yinteng's words, the little boy could not help but cry. Just as he was about to act coquettishly, Sung Yinteng had already left with Xiao Yan and the little boy. His figure was quickly covered by the dense bamboo forest behind the wooden house. What is it?" As he muttered, the little boy angrily walked to the side of the White Dragon Condor. He looked at the medicine pill in his palm and used a lot of effort to open the mouth of the White Dragon Condor and stuff it in. Seeing the latter's throat move and swallowing the medicine pill, he wiped the sweat off his forehead. "That fellow still has a few more tricks up his sleeve. What will happen if I call little Huang out?" The little boy sat cross-legged on the ground with both hands supporting his face. He couldn't help but let his imagination run wild as a foolish smile appeared on his face. Under Sung Yinteng's lead, Xiao Yan and Su Chuya didn't speak. They walked along the path in the bamboo forest, and the only sound they could hear was the sound of the tree's leaves blowing by their ears. Unlike Xiao Yan's doubt, Su Chuya was more surprised. In order to convince Sung Yintong to become their alchemist, he had come here many times over the years, but this was the first time he had entered the secret land of City Lord's mansion. In order to get Sung Yintong to become a great alchemist, they had already made thorough inquiries about the former. The secret land of City Lord's mansion was located in the depths of the bamboo forest. Although this speech was a bit too general, it was also very general. It also explained the powerful means of the Su family from another point of view. What Su Chuya means is that both of you have been to the northern Kang Mountains. Suddenly, Sung Yintong spoke and stopped in his tracks. What stood in front of him was a stone wall that looked like iron and stone. The wall was covered with moss, and it was unknown how many years it had been. That's right. Xiao Yan glanced at Su Chuya. Although his heart was filled with doubt, he still answered honestly. Old man, you're not talking about that cave, are you? If I knew you cared about it so much, I would have gone in to take a look. Su Chuya wasn't an idiot. He had considered most of the things along the way. When he heard Sung Yintong's words, he glanced at him. He didn't have the slightest respect for this young child who seemed to be even younger than him. Don't talk. Sung Yintong's face turned cold. He glared at Su Chuya. The latter gritted his teeth, but there was nothing he could do. He could only give up bitterly. He turned his head and looked around, but his attention was focused on the two of them. What did you find in Tuo Shi's cave? Sung Yintong's face turned gloomy. He looked at Xiao Yan and spoke in an unfriendly tone. The video of Medicine Lord and Tuo Shi's conversation. Xiao Yan did not hide anything and said it out loud. He was not afraid that Sung Yintong would hurt people in this place. Even if the latter and Su Chuya joined hands to deal with him, he would be able to retreat safely with the help of the Xiao Ao. What do you know from it, and what do you want to know from me? Hearing this, Sung Yintong raised his eyebrows. He gritted his teeth and asked. When he listened carefully, his voice actually trembled a little. I don't know anything. From Senior, I only want to know some of Medicine Lord's experiences when he came to the Great World. Or, I should say, some of it is related to Tuo Shi. Before he could finish speaking, Sung Yintong coldly snorted and interrupted him. After which, he spoke with a stern expression. Let me tell you, Su Chuya, you have also heard it clearly. Medicine Lord and Tuo Shi only met once. After that, they never met again. There was no interaction between the two of them. Sung Yintong's expression was solemn, and his tone was solemn. However, Xiao Yan could hear it clearly in his ears. For some reason, he had a feeling that he wanted to cover it up. Or, it could be said that the former was deliberately hiding something. But this feeling, it was hard to tell if it was an illusion or not. One Sung Yintong's words stunned Su Chuya. He couldn't think of a way to answer all the questions that he had been thinking about. No. Tuo Shi suddenly rose up 20,000 years ago. Medicine Lord had yet to come into contact with alchemy. In other words, his soul power has yet to pass through the 3 steps soul transfer. Ever since he met Tuo Shi in the northern Kang Mountains, he has quickly become a renowned alchemist grandmaster in all regions. Xiao Yan's mind was in a state of confusion. It was a long time before he finally reacted. However, it was as though he had encountered a mountain that he could not cross. He did not know which direction he should head in. City Lord Sung, your words are biased. According to the records of my family, before Medicine Lord entered the northern Kang Mountains, he was very powerful, but I have never heard of his skill in alchemy. After coming out of the northern Kang Mountains, his skill in alchemy has reached perfection. As for the northern Kang Mountains, it is the place where Tuo Shi used to be. How could the two of them not have any connection? While Xiao Yan was hesitating, Su Chuya suddenly spoke. He looked at Sung Yintong with an unfriendly expression and coldly harumphed. You too. A trace of anger flashed across Sung Yintong's eyes. He was about to scold them, but his eyes swept across the direction of the northern Kang Mountains as if he had thought of something. He gritted his teeth and waved his sleeve. He turned around and slammed his palm on the wall behind him. The wall trembled under their shocked expressions. A hidden stone door slowly opened in a corner of the wall. Come in. Sung Yintong sighed and stepped into it first. The interior of the stone door was pitch black, and no one could see the face of the stone door. Xiao Yan was slightly startled, and immediately followed after him. Su Chuya stood there in a daze. Initially, he thought that he was here to blow the wind in Sung Yintang's ear again. He had tried to rope him in to join the Su family, but he had never thought that he would end up here by accident. Now, he was going to enter the secret place of the city lord's mansion. Su Chuya took note of his surroundings. He muttered a few words and followed Xiao Yan into the secret place. No one knew what Sung Yintang was trying to do. Hong Long, as the two of them entered the cave, the stone door slammed shut. Boundless darkness surged into their eyes. Xiao Yan blinked his eyes. Golden light surged into his eyes and he could clearly see the cave. Su Chuya, who was standing beside him, also had some tricks up his sleeve. His eyes were overflowing with spiritual light, and he could easily see through the endless darkness. The place where they were was like a naturally opened cave. From time to time, drops of water would drip down from above. The wall was cold like an ice cellar. Not far away, there was a dilapidated building. Sung Yintang stood on top of the building and waved at the two of them, signaling them to come over. Pretending to be mysterious, Su Chuya muttered. Apparently, he didn't like the cold environment here. The temperature in Mingan Divine Domain was extremely high, causing many people to hate the cold weather. When Xiao Yan and Su Chuya went up the stairs to the attic, Sung Yintang suddenly smiled helplessly. He waved his sleeve and shattered the wooden staircase into pieces, turning it into ashes and dissipating. "What are you doing?" Su Chuya raised his eyebrows. Anger surged in his heart. He was a little unhappy. Xiao Yan looked over and saw that the stairs had been destroyed. This meant that the building was in the middle of the air. Sung Yintang's sudden change made him mutter in his heart. "All right, now that this place is not connected to the sky or the ground, I can say something that is hard to say." Ignoring Su Chuya's question, Sung Yintang looked at Xiao Yan with a helpless smile on his face. "City Lord Sung means." Xiao Yan was stunned for a moment, but his heart suddenly felt a burning sensation. "Sit down." Sung Yintang pointed to the wooden stools on both sides and sighed. "I have been to the cave in the North Kang Mountains before, but there seems to be an unknown taboo in there. I can't take a step into it even if I use all my strength. After I come back, I thought about it and guessed that this might be the trick of my teacher, so he didn't want me to go in. But later on, I secretly observed that Su Chuya had tried to go into the cave several times, but he didn't succeed. I thought, perhaps this taboo isn't directed at me, but all the people of the great world." After listening to Sung Yintang's words, Su Chuya's face couldn't help but turn red. He coldly harumphed and didn't speak anymore. He didn't realize that this old man was secretly observing him when he tried to enter Tuo Shi's cave. Could it be that only the people from the lower realm can enter? Xiao Yan's head became hot, and he couldn't help but ask. "That's right. Furthermore, there are countless planes in the lower realm. Perhaps, only those who are in the same plane as my master can enter. This is only my guess. After all, for so many years, the powerful fighting monarchies in the lower realms, I have never seen any of them. You are the first one, Xiao Yan." Sung Yintang raised his eyes slightly and spoke in a soft voice with a complicated tone. Xiao Yan pursed his lips and didn't say anything. Su Chuya, on the other hand, couldn't help but glance at him. The corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. He had thought that this guy was a disciple of a big family in the outer domain, but he didn't expect that this guy was actually a fighting monarch of lower realm who had ascended to this world. What was even more unacceptable to him was that he actually had the prestige power spell even with his background. "This place is the cave that my master took me as his disciple in the past. It has been more than 5,000 years. I wonder where my master has gone to." Sung Yintang turned around and looked outside the pavilion. He suddenly sighed. "He's not dead?" Su Chuya couldn't help but cry out when he heard this. He was stunned and in disbelief. Medicine Lord wasn't dead yet? If these words were to spread out, who knew how much of a shock it would cause in the Mingan Divine Domain? Xiao Yan, on the other hand, was slightly delighted, but he didn't say anything. "Su Chuya, don't make a big deal out of it. Back then, Medicine Lord was also one of the major powers in the Mingan Divine Domain. When he dominated the Divine Domain, Su Chenglong was only a junior. Let me ask you, how did Su Chenglong die?" Sung Yintang sneered and looked at Su Chuya. Su Chenglong was the ancestor who established the Su family, and his name had once shaken the God Domain. His name had entered the Heaven Divine Mountain, and was revered by his descendants. The ancestor was plotted against by a thief, and his injuries were too severe. He passed away in an instant. When he saw Sung Yintong calling his ancestor's name directly, he couldn't help but exclaim. Su Chuya was a little unhappy, but since it was related to Medicine Lord, he didn't want to get entangled with it. That's right. If it wasn't for someone plotting against me, given Senior Su's strength, he would definitely have closed himself up in the secret place of Su family. Even if he couldn't break through, he would still have a lifespan of nearly 20,000 years. Medicine Lord's strength is even greater than Senior Sus, and he is also a great alchemist. He would never pass away without any illness or disaster. Since he isn't dead, where did he go? Su Chuya was extremely excited and hastily asked. Not to mention me. No one in the Mingan divine domain knows where Medicine Lord went, but one thing is certain, he is not dead. Pausing for a moment, Sung Yintong snorted lightly and looked at the slightly excited Sung Yintong. Su Chuya, don't even think about going back and telling your family members about this. This news is indeed shocking to ordinary people, but for someone with the status of the Su family's patriarch, they might have already known about it long ago. It's just that they have deeply buried their hearts in it. Why? Since they knew that Medicine Lord wasn't dead, why did everyone acquiesce to Medicine Lord's death? Su Chuya crossed his arms across his chest and gritted his teeth. A person who has disappeared for 5,000 years is no different from a dead person. Before Sung Yintong could say anything, Xiao Yan, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke. He looked at the former with a sharp gaze and said with a solemn expression, City Lord Sung, as you said, this place is neither heaven nor earth. You didn't bring us here just to tell us that Medicine Lord is still alive, right? Sung Yintong's face trembled slightly, then he smiled helplessly. His gaze was relaxed. Yuan said, it can't be helped, the heavenly Tao is profound, talking nonsense will incur the wrath of heaven. Tuo Shi is not a simple person, to be able to make teachers submit. I really can't imagine how there would be such a powerful existence in this world. 2 inches powerful? City Lord Sung was exaggerating. An existence that could make Medicine Lord submit to him must be unimaginably powerful. Why didn't he enter the Heaven Divine Mountain? I have never heard my father mention it. Su Chuya sneered. His face was full of a frivolous smile, but if one took a closer look, one would find that his eyes were filled with seriousness. Because he is too powerful, so powerful that no one in the world can sense his existence. Sung Yintong opened his mouth, but he could only say such a surprising answer. After that, his expression became complicated, and he did not explain anything further. He could never forget that he was taken in by Medicine Lord as a disciple back then. With the guidance of a Grandmaster alchemist and his extraordinary talent, he was able to possess an amazing alchemy skill in just 5 or 6 years. It was also during this year that he mistakenly consumed the appearance-setting pill that Medicine Lord refined. From then on, his appearance had remained the same as it was now. After that, Medicine Lord suddenly went into seclusion. 10 years later, on the night before he disappeared, he was suddenly called over and said some strange things. The next day, the Master of Medicine City disappeared completely. No one knew where he was. Over time, there were countless rumors that he had died. The Northern Kang Mountains isn't something that can be explored by humans. In the future, don't go too deep into it, and don't tell outsiders about the various things that happened in the Northern Kang Mountains. The heavenly Tao is profound, and it's not something that you can understand. After saying Medicine Lord's complete words, Sung Yintong had a strange expression on his face. He had been thinking about it for 1,000 years, but he still couldn't understand the meaning behind those words. Northern Kangshan is indeed mysterious and unpredictable. However, that's all. Medicine Lord is just exaggerating. Su Chuya chuckled. He didn't seem to care at all. Xiao Yan couldn't help but glance at the former. He pursed his lips and didn't say anything. Su Chuya had the power of the situation. When he mastered it, he would undoubtedly have an immortal body. He also had the ability to enter and exit Bei Kangshan freely. I'm just reminding you all. My master said that the heavenly Tao is profound and profound. As for what exactly it is, I don't know. Only in this place, without the Empress Heaven and Earth, would I dare to tell you all. Sung Yintong wasn't angry. He let out a cold laugh and sighed. It's better not to speak after talking for a long time. It's all bullshit. Su Chuya frowned and cursed in a low voice. He was brought here by Sung Yintong. In the end, he only knew one thing that was known by all the powerful people. It made him happy for nothing. Since Medicine Lord has said it first, I won't ask anymore. If you have the ability in the future, you can go to the Northern Kang Mountains to take a look. Xiao Yan smiled. The pressure in his heart had been relieved. He could see that he could not get any news from Sung Yintong. However, knowing that Medicine Lord was still alive was enough. That would be great. If I can find any clues about my master, I will be very grateful. Upon hearing this, Sung Yintong smiled gently. For the first time, he revealed a trace of a smile to Xiao Yan. He had also gone to the Northern Kang Mountains several times, but he didn't dare to step into the forbidden area. With his powerful soul power, he could always feel the hostility in the forbidden area. This aura caused him to retreat in a sorry state every time he entered the forbidden area. If that's the case, Xiao Yan won't disturb me anymore. I haven't had a good tour of the medicine city yet. After expressing his thoughts tactfully to Sung Yintong, Xiao Yan slightly nodded his head and didn't say anything else. All right, Su young master, I have troubled you again for nothing. Go back and tell your father that I am old and do not want to go to the family to be ordered around by others. Sung Yintong smiled. He cupped his hands gently towards Su Chuya. Ignoring the latter's ashen expression, his body turned and arrived in front of the stone door. His hand was placed on the stone door. Following a rumbling sound, a dark ray of sunlight suddenly shot into the dark cave, bringing some light to the dark cave. This old fellow is quite interesting. Xiao Yan chuckled and muttered to himself. He ignored the gloomy expression on Su Chuya's face and quietly followed Sung Yintong's footsteps. Old fool, this excuse is really a different one. Su Chuya gritted his teeth and spat out a mouthful of saliva. He snorted and followed after Sung Yintong. Hong Long, as the stone door slowly closed, Sung Yintong patted the stone door. His young and tender face revealed a mature and serious expression. By the way, what I told you just now must not be spread out. The heavenly Tao is profound, and it might bring you some undeserved calamity. What secret did you say just now? What is there to say? Su Chuya, who was already unhappy with Sung Yintong, couldn't help but sneer at him. That's good. Ignoring Su Chuya's sarcasm, Sung Yintong nodded his head and revealed a relieved smile. After that, he walked out of the bamboo forest, followed by Su Chuya and Xiao Yan, whose faces were filled with displeasure. Boom! Before the three of them could walk out of the bamboo forest, a shocking explosion sounded out like a sudden clap of thunder. Immediately after, the surrounding temperature rose, and the roaring sound of the fire dragon instantly woke everyone up. This is, the magma of the Northern Kang Mountains has erupted again? Su Chuya was the first to react. He frowned and looked in the direction of the Northern Kang Mountains. He let out a slight exclamation of surprise. The eruption of the magma these few days had been quite frequent. Xiao Yan was slightly startled. Then, he immediately looked at Sung Yintong who was standing beside him. The latter's body was trembling slightly. His tender face was pale, and his eyes were filled with endless fear. Heavenly Tao. Heavenly Tao is profound and profound. The North Kang Mountains sensed our conversation. Sung Yintong's lips trembled as he let out a miserable laugh. His expression instantly turned ugly. It's just a coincidence. What's the pattern of the eruption of the magma in Bei Kengshan? If it's really that effective, will I still be able to come out alive? Seeing Sung Yintong's ugly expression, Su Chuya's mood instantly improved a lot. He laughed and patted Sung Yintong's shoulder. He had no respect for a young child who was as old as his ancestor. Ignorant child, what do you know? Sung Yintong sneered and shook his shoulder. Su Chuya took a few steps back as if he had suffered a heavy blow. His arm was slightly numb and he almost sat on the ground. Although he was furious in his heart, Su Chuya still managed to regain his senses in time. He knew that the strength of this guy in front of him was different from his appearance. He would only bring humiliation to himself if he attacked. He gritted his teeth and swallowed his anger. All right, all of you can leave now. If anyone dares to speak of today's conversation, don't blame me even if they die. Following the sudden eruption of the magma, Sung Yintong's expression became much uglier. Immediately, he issued an expulsion order, and his tone became stiff. Farewell. Su Chuya, who had been angered, did not want to stay any longer. He simply cupped his hands in greeting. The origin chi on his back whistled and was about to fly away from this place. Flying is prohibited in the city lord's mansion. Get out of here. Sung Yintong waved his sleeve. A huge force rushed out and scattered the origin chi on Su Chuya's back. It caused Su Chuya's body to tremble and his chi and blood to churn. You! He glared at Sung Yintong. Su Chuya knew he was in the wrong. He glanced at Xiao Yan, then moved his eyes and left without looking back. Why aren't you leaving? Are you waiting to stay for dinner? Seeing that Xiao Yan didn't leave, Sung Yintong coldly harumphed and returned to his usual cold demeanor. City Lord Sung is serious. It's just that he saw that your talent in alchemy is quite strong, so I want to show off. Xiao Yan grinned and cupped his hands towards Sung Yintong. As soon as the words left his mouth, Sung Yintong's stiff face trembled. The coldness in his eyes also dissipated. 1. You also saw Sung Rui just now. How do you feel? Sung Yintong didn't answer Xiao Yan's question directly. He pursed his lips and said in a low voice. Sung Rui was his grandson. He was only 10 years old, and he had great talent in alchemy. He was happy to teach him, but he did not feel good about it. Even in these few prefectures, Sung Yintong's skill in alchemy could be counted on one hand. Otherwise, the Su family's master wouldn't have asked Su Chuya to come out of the mountain again and again, but to instruct a 10-year-old child was useless. When I was at the entrance of the city lord's mansion just now, I sensed something. This is the first time I have seen a 10-year-old child refining a 5th-rank medicine pill. This is the first time I have seen this kind of talent. Xiao Yan laughed bitterly. He could not help but click his tongue in wonder. Back in the Spirit Heaven Mansion's pill refining competition, even monstrous geniuses like Li Zan, Xiao Yu, and the others had risked their lives to refine a Tier 4 medicine pill in order to become the champion. But now, a 10-year-old child had such a technique. Although he wasn't very familiar with it, it was enough to make countless people blush with shame. Sung Rui's talent is indeed rarely seen in 10,000 years. If possible, he might even be comparable to those big shots in the alchemy world in the future. But now, I can't give him any guidance. He sighed. Sung Yintong's face showed some pain. His grandson was like a piece of jade, but he didn't have an exquisite knife in his hand. It's because my soul power doesn't match. Xiao Yan's expression was calm as he suddenly spoke. The first time he met Sung Rui, he had sensed that this little boy was different from the other alchemists he had met. There seemed to be a slight change in his soul, causing ordinary alchemy techniques to be useless to him. Incompatible? Sung Yintong was startled. After which, he looked at Xiao Yan with a strange expression. What do you mean? I once followed a master alchemist to cultivate, and I have a slight understanding of soul power. Logically speaking, within the soul force of the original inhabitants of the great world. Compared to the soul force of the lower realm 3 steps soul transfer, there is a hint of perfect compatibility. After all, the soul power of the lower realms had undergone mutation. There were some flaws, but it was also because of these flaws. That's why our soul force is slightly stronger than yours. Xiao Yan spoke frankly and confidently. These were all things Elder Yi had told him in the past. His original intention was to let him differentiate the difference between the soul power of the 3 steps soul transfer and that of the soul power of the original inhabitants of the great world. This. Sung Yintong widened his eyes and looked at Xiao Yan with an increasingly surprised look. Medicine Lord had roughly mentioned the difference between the 2 types of soul power, but for various reasons, he hadn't told Medicine Lord about it in detail. Now that he heard Xiao Yan's words, he couldn't help but feel surprised. What you said doesn't match. You mean that Sung Rui's soul power doesn't belong to the great world, but is the same as the soul power after the 3 steps soul transfer? After regaining his senses, Sung Yintong let out a cold snort, his face showing some displeasure. I didn't say that, but it might be because of his extraordinary talent. This kind of soul power can be used to concoct pills that far exceeds alchemists of the same grade, but it's not that simple to master it. Xiao Yan shrugged his shoulders, appearing extremely mysterious and unfathomable. You have a way? Upon hearing this, Sung Yintong instantly perked up, his small face full of hope. It can't be considered a method. It's just some experience of concocting pills by yourself. Xiao Yan smiled and said vaguely, if you can let Sung Rui cross this hurdle, you can have as many herbs as you want in Medicine City. Grabbing Xiao Yan's shoulder, Sung Yintong gritted his teeth and squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. His expression was even somewhat ferocious. Then I won't be polite. Xiao Yan was delighted. Sung Yintong's promise was much bigger than what he had imagined. Under Sung Yintong's lead, Xiao Yan saw this handsome little boy once again. The white dragon condor had yet to recover from its injuries. When it saw Xiao Yan, a trace of fear appeared in its eyes. It couldn't help but scream and wanted to fly away. "Why haven't you left yet?" Sung Rui was about to get angry, but when he saw Sung Yintong standing at the side, he suppressed the urge to curse and said with an unhappy expression. Without waiting for Xiao Yan to speak, Sung Yintong had already strode forward and touched the forehead of the white dragon eagle to calm it down. Then, he looked at Sung Rui and said with a gloomy expression, "Now Xiao Yan is here to guide you in alchemy. Don't be so rude." "Him? Teach me?" Sung Rui raised his eyebrows and sneered. "Grandpa, don't tease me. Does he still have your skill in alchemy? He has his own specialties. Cut the crap and go refine a 5th-rank medicine pill immediately. Let Xiao Yan see where the problem lies." Sung Yintong coldly harumphed. Sung Yintong pulled a long face and Sung Rui quickly shut his mouth. He didn't say anything else and just looked at Xiao Yan with disdain. After that, he angrily walked towards the small wooden house where the Xiao Yans were being concocted. Seeing that Sung Rui was preparing to concoct the pill, Sung Yintong nodded at Xiao Yan and said with a serious expression, "It's all up to you now." Xiao Yan nodded silently. He walked to the small wooden house and sat down on the ground. He looked at Sung Rui in front of him without saying a word. The latter quickly entered the state of refining the medicine cauldron. His expression was serious as his 2 small hands quickly changed. He controlled the flame within the medicine cauldron in front of him. Indeed, spiritual strength surged out from between his brows. Under the circumstances where he did not disturb Sung Rui's pill refinement, Xiao Yan quickly sensed a unique feeling within the latter's spiritual strength. This feeling was quite similar to the spiritual strength after the 3 steps soul transfer. This is strange. This kind of soul mutation is really rare. Looking at Sung Rui's skillful concoction technique, Xiao Yan sighed in his heart, but at the same time, he was also surprised and bewildered. In the countless books in Yunluo Academy, he had never seen a few examples of soul mutation. The soul mutation of other people was even more perfect, but this child in front of him had a trace of imperfection in his soul energy. Sung Yintong quietly watched from the side. With his majestic soul power, he was like a high and mighty existence, observing Xiao Yan and Sung Rui's soul power clearly. He couldn't help but feel surprised in his heart. The courtyard was extremely quiet. There was only the sound of burning fire, accompanied by the sound of medicinal herbs shattering, and the smell of medicinal herbs filled the air. About an hour later, Sung Rui's expression suddenly became solemn. He moved his 10 fingers, urging the origin cheese in his body to surge wildly toward the embryonic medicine pill in the cauldron. Within the black medicine cauldron, a layer of faint purple color quickly covered the surface of a black medicine pill. Buzz. In the next moment, a buzzing sound suddenly sounded. Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows, looking at it with his sharp eyes. Sung Rui's forehead was covered in sweat. He gritted his teeth and endured for a moment before helplessly giving up. His soul force was dispirited as he withdrew it. The embryonic medicine pill that was about to take shape also ended in failure, and was sent out by the medicine cauldron. Hu. Sung Rui panted heavily as he sat on the ground. His small face was covered in sweat and his eyes were filled with doubt. He was obviously about to succeed, but his glabella was like a needle piercing through it. His soul energy could not withstand it and could only helplessly withdraw. How is it? Sung Yintong's facial expression changed. He looked at Xiao Yan and spoke in an urgent tone. Xiao Yan thought for a while and looked at Sung Yintong. He hesitated and said, "My control of soul power is too weak, and I am not flexible enough. If you want to improve it, I have an idea, but I need you to make some sacrifices, City Lord Sung. Quote, 2 inches you tell me, it doesn't matter even if I use this old bone." Sung Yintong spoke without hesitation, but what he said made people laugh. Hearing this, the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth rose slightly, and his tone changed. "City Lord Sung, let me ask you a question first. How much importance does the Su family that Su Chuya belongs to attach to you?" Sung Yintong raised his brows, although he didn't understand what Xiao Yan meant. He said in a low voice, "When Su Choi's father hadn't become the head of the Su family, he had come to visit me many times. He hoped that I could become an alchemist of the Su family. At that time, there were several saints in the Su family. He only had a slight advantage in the fight for the position of the head. So, if you want me to become an alchemist of the Su family, this can be considered a great achievement for him, and it will be very beneficial for him to fight for the position of patriarch in the future. Xiao Yan pursed his lips and continued to look at Sung Yintong. The latter pondered for a moment and spoke again. Of course, I didn't agree to it. I also didn't want to participate in the competition between these people. However, because of some matters, I owe him a favor, so I gifted him a few medicine pills. He has done well. With just those few medicine pills, he obtained the recognition of the previous family head of Su family. After that, he used his absolute strength to suppress the current generation saints, and became the current family head of the Su family. After that, people from the Su family came frequently, and they hoped that I would become their guest elder. In recent years, Su Chuya has come here every time he comes to the northern Kang Mountains to train. If it wasn't for his father's face and his arrogant attitude, he wouldn't have been able to enter the medicine city. Sung Yintong sneered, as if he didn't have a good impression of Su Chuya. Does this mean that the Su family still hasn't given up on you? Xiao Yan raised his eyelids and asked. The Su family's strength can only be considered first-rate because there is no alchemist grandmaster in the family who can control the universe. With the ambition and strength of the current patriarch, he will certainly not satisfy the current status of the Su family. I estimate that it won't take long before the patriarch of the Su family comes here personally. At that time, I really don't know what reason I can use to reject him. Sighing, Sung Yintong's face was filled with helplessness. Why are you asking this? He recalled. Sung Yintong frowned and looked at Xiao Yan. Beside him, Sung Rui stood up, baring his teeth and listening to their conversation. City Lord Sung, I won't beat around the bush. I can solve your grandson's problem, but I need you to pay some price. Xiao Yan stood up, stared at Sung Yintong, and said word by word. I have the prestige power spell, one of the 8 powers. Through a special method, I can merge it with Sung Rui's soul. With the tempering of the prestige power spell, my soul power will surely increase rapidly. After a pause, without waiting for Sung Yintong to speak, Xiao Yan gritted his teeth and set out the thoughts that were hidden deep in his heart. In exchange, I need you to join the Su family and become an elder of the Su family. You can use this to exchange for Su Chouai's situation skill. You. Sung Yintong's face was filled with shock, and his mind was filled with a myriad of wild waves. He stared at Xiao Yan for a long time before he spoke in a cold voice. What is this? Is this a threat? I'm really sorry, but you can also think the same. I think that with the Su family's desire for you, perhaps they will agree to exchange the situation for the formula. Xiao Yan's voice was low, but his eyes met Sung Yintong's cold gaze, and he didn't back down at all. Humph, humph, what a good kid. After so many years, even the Su family wouldn't dare to speak to me in such a way. You are the first one. Sung Yintong's eyes suddenly turned sharp, like 2 sharp swords piercing into Xiao Yan's body. The cold qi that was emitted from his body caused the flames in the medicine cauldron to be extinguished quietly. Like a giant mountain, he lunged at Xiao Yan. Boundless killing qi filled the air, and under Sung Yintong's control, all of them rushed towards Xiao Yan. Sung Yintong's strength was unfathomable, but it wasn't at the level of Li Xianfeng. Although the suppression of his qi was terrifying, it didn't matter to Xiao Yan, who possessed the prestige power spell. His face was still calm as he looked at Sung Yintong quietly. Sung Rui's face was also pale. He stared at Sung Yintong in fear. Although he wasn't affected by the qi, he could easily sense this terrifying qi with his extraordinary soul strength. Outside the house, birds were singing and flowers were blooming. However, the room was as cold as ice. The two of them were confronting each other. No one spoke a word. This deadlock caused Sung Rui to stare blankly at the two of them. The usual troublemaker had also disappeared at this moment. You really do have the prestige power spell. Suddenly, the cold qi dissipated in an instant. The coldness in Sung Yintong's eyes had also disappeared. He no longer looked at Xiao Yan with killing intent. If City Lord Sung agrees, Sung Rui can have it as well. Besides, he will also have a truly talented grandson. Xiao Yan's heart moved. His expression was still calm as he spoke slowly. Prestige power spell. This thing is indeed magical, but what does it have to do with tempering the soul? Sung Yintong frowned and said with an expressionless face. The assimilation of the soul. Didn't you test it just now? Xiao Yan replied with a smile. What guarantee do you have? After a moment of silence, Sung Yintong raised his head and looked in that direction. His voice was heavy. Since the heavenly Tao is profound, I swear on the heavenly Tao. What do you think? Xiao Yan grinned and said in a serious tone. Hey, you have learned quite quickly. Sung Yintong sneered and walked slowly in the room with his hands behind his back. He frowned and Xiao Yan was not in a hurry. He just stood there quietly and did not say anything. Su Chuya has the tactics of the situation. This is the first time I know about it. No wonder this little guy has to enter the northern Kang Mountains every time to train. However, the tactics of the situation is one of the 8 forces. Do you think the Su family can give it to you? Sung Yintong stopped in his tracks and said coldly. Well, it depends on how attractive you are to the Su family. If the patriarch of the Su family is really as ambitious as you said, he will most likely agree to it. Xiao Yan hesitated for a moment and continued. Besides, in the Su family, Su Chuya is the only one who has the skill. As for how to convince him, I need your help. You want to obtain it directly? Sung Yintong sneered, but he was not angry. You can't say that. Sung Rui has obtained the prestige power spell, and his talent in alchemy has increased as well. His future achievements will be limitless. I only got the skill formula of the situation. No matter how you look at it, you have earned this deal. Xiao Yan chuckled, but he didn't deny it. It means that you have pushed me into the Su family, right? Sung Yintong sneered, causing Xiao Yan to shrug his shoulders in embarrassment. Since you are confident, it's not a big deal to sacrifice my old bones for this little thing. Sung Yintong waved his sleeve and said loudly to the outside of the room. Get Su Chuya here. As soon as he finished speaking, a majestic voice was heard, and then there was no more movement. This kid, every time he comes to Medicine City, he will go to the gambling dens in the city to play. I'm sure we can find him there. Sung Yintong sneered when he saw Xiao Yan's puzzled look. Casino. Xiao Yan rubbed his chin and nodded. His eyes were heavy as he recalled the time when he was with Su Chuya. He was afraid that this fellow wouldn't agree so easily.